Hey guys, no intro this time around. This is a video that I've been thinking about making for a while now. What pushed me to finally make that video today was not necessarily anything in Overwatch. Or at least that was not the trigger. What actually triggered me was this interview I saw on YouTube. A conversation between Scott Johnson, the host of The Instance, and Chris Metzen, the executive creative director for World of Warcraft, which is another Blizzard game, a Blizzard game that I played for a really long time, till well, just a few years ago. Now, a bit of a warning, the next, let's say, 1 or 2 minutes, I'm going to be talking about World of Warcraft. And yeah, I know, this is supposed to be an Overwatch video, but I'm going to get to that. Just bear with me. World of Warcraft has gone through a lot in the last few years. It started out as a genre-defining game that was blowing all of the competition, including the games that inspired them to make World of Warcraft out of the water. It was insane. And over time, they kept building on their success by releasing new expansions. They pushed the story forward. They polished the core experience of the game while they were adding all kinds of new features. But a few expansions in, things started falling apart. As they were evolving the game, as they were adding content, they slowly lost touch with the game that they had made all those years ago and that got them this success. On top of that, they had a community that had evolved. Our standards had risen, our expectations had shifted, which led to a situation where the Warcraft development team, lost touch with the community. And sure, it definitely did not help that Bobby Kotick suddenly decided to take a personal interest in the day-to-day business over at Blizzard. But that was not the only reason. As the relationship between the development team and the community soured, the vibe around Warcraft kind of shifted. You heard these comments like, it's a dead game. It's the end of an era. There's no coming back from this. They should fire the whole team. Who is actually making these decisions? That sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Yeah. Wow. Not too long ago, Chris Metzen made a return to the Warcraft team, to Blizzard in general. He had left Blizzard 8 years ago, kind of started doing his own thing, but I guess the call was too loud. At first, he came back as a creative advisor, but then at the end of last year, they announced that he was the new executive creative director for Warcraft. For a lot of people, including myself, that was a very hopeful sign. I mean, he is freaking Thrall. Enough said. Around the time that he returned, Dragonflight, which is the expansion that is about to end in World of Warcraft, was released. And overall, it's been considered to be one of the best expansions that they released ever. The tone around the game also started to shift in a positive direction this time. There was optimism. People were flocking back to the game. They had rising numbers again. And this week, that game is about to embark on its biggest adventure yet, with a new expansion that is going to be part of a trilogy, and they have plans for the next 10 years, all lined out. And all of that is not just because Chris Metzen came back. I mean, I do admire and respect the dude a lot, but there was more going on. The shift actually started from before that. If anything, I think the fact that Chris came back is more a symptom than a cause of these things shifting. And that thing was very simple. They started listening to their players. And over the years, when they started listening, they developed a plan, a long-term vision that eventually got them back to where they belonged, where they developed content and features that matter, that players have asked for, that players need. They simply started building the game that the community wanted, instead of making the game that they think it needs to be. It seems that they have redeemed themselves. For now. Alright, let's get back to Overwatch. Like I said, that story sounds very familiar for anybody that played Overwatch longer than the last 2 years. Overwatch 2 has been a genre-defining game that inspired a lot of other games. But they also kind of lost themselves in all of their plans and basically in trying to develop what they thought the game needed to be. And look, I'm not going to comment about the cancelling of PvE. In this video, I'm also not talking about the balancing, and definitely not about the monetization model. I do plenty of that in my other videos. In this video, the topic is actually way bigger than that. It's about the role that Overwatch can play in this evolving landscape, where competitors are standing up, quite a lot of them actually. How can they get back to being that defining title again? How can they go back to inspiring other developers to make awesome games? And the answer is pretty simple. They need to do the same thing that the Warcraft team did, and they need to listen to their player base, which they started doing late last year. We are actually in that first phase where they start listening and trying to comprehend what we actually need. They are learning how to run this game again. because it's very different. On top of that, the circumstances are way more serious or dire than they were for the Warcraft team all those years ago. I can't shake the feeling that they actually have to fight on two fronts. On one end, they're trying to regain the trust of the player base, which by itself is already very difficult for many reasons. But I'll get back to those in a second. On top of that, I get the feeling that they also have to prove themselves to the upper management, because they have not had a lot of success lately. I mean, a lot of us were upset when PvE got cancelled, including myself. And rightfully so, we all were looking forward to it. But I've said this before, trust me that it was just as bad for the people that were working on the team. They were just as disappointed. They wanted to get this done. It was their dream to get this done. And it was especially bad for those that eventually got fired back in January because PvE got cancelled and they just weren't bringing in the money. On top of that, the people that remained behind had to deal with the loss of their colleagues, both on a personal level but also professionally. Suddenly, your team is cut in half, or at least a big part is gone. Blizzard basically stripped them from the resources. I mean, live service games are notoriously difficult to develop and more difficult to maintain. You need to keep that content rolling because otherwise players just get bored. And right when they needed to gear up, when they needed to shift, they were robbed of a big part of their resources. So now they have to do all of that and more with a smaller team. And look, I'm not saying that they're not going to get more resources in the future, but they will have to work really hard to get them. So it is very difficult, and we're not helping, because on top of that internal battle, there is us, the player base. And just like with the Warcraft community, we are very critical of everything that they do with the game, because we love the game. It makes sense. And I think that is very healthy. We need to be critical. It is part of that whole listening process. Both us and the team need to learn what we want to see in this game and what we do not want to see in this game. However, currently, this community is the most angry and toxic it's ever been. There are many reasons why that is the case. There has been a lot of disappointment, granted. There's also the fact that it is free to play, which brings in a lot of people that just don't care. And then the monetization. I was not going to talk about it, but it doesn't help. So that leaves us with a player base where a big part of it just does not want to talk. They just want to be angry. And turns out that some of those people are in a position of influence. In other words, some of them are content creators and they love stabbing at the game at every opportunity. It doesn't even have to be consistent. Any reason is good enough. Kind of pisses me off. And their goal is not to improve the game. That's just the irony of all of it. They just need to yell. That's it. And it needs to go their way, basically. They know best. But, you know, behind all that anger and rage, there's a slew of different reasons why they behave that way. For some, it's really simple. It's financial gain. Hate farming. It works. It really works. Some have personal issues with members on the team. And then there's a few that just have very personal problems. I'm not going to touch that. And behind those creators is a group of people that watch their content and that are quite angry themselves, and they feel recognized and they feel like they have a voice through that content creator. And yeah, granted, some of these people have genuine issues with the game. I mean, in my community, there are people that have genuine issues with the game. I do have genuine issues with the game. Things I want to see changed. But just as often, there is going to be people that are angry because they just lost 7 games in a row. Or their main hero is not performing well, or they're not winning every single game, or their rank is not high enough. So they just jump on the bandwagon and start sharing the gospel of hatred. I've said this many times before. I can almost link every angry comment on my videos to another content creator that those people have been watching, because they all just echo those same opinions. And the moment that that content creator realizes that they were wrong and they stop talking about it, the community stops talking about it. I've seen that happen a lot. But look, everybody is entitled to their opinion. Like I said before, the game does need work. There are some things that I would like to change. But if we're all going to start sharing these clips of some just yelling at their camera and name-calling developers, we're not going to get there. That is not the way forward. What definitely is not the way forward is starting to harass those developers on social media or by sending them threatening messages. I can't believe that we got to this point as a community. Because at the end, you know, it's just a game. If you don't like it, move on. There's plenty of other games. And for those of you that love the game so much that you want to stick around, know that this might be a very critical time in the future of this game. This is where the developers are listening, and it's up to us to talk to them. That's exactly why they're doing all these videos, these blogs, that they're doing the quick play hacked, that they want to do these hero tests before they actually release them, because they are very busy trying to reinvent what Overwatch is while actually staying true to the core gameplay and the core character of Overwatch as a game. The thing is, they can't do it by themselves. The Warcraft team couldn't do it by themselves either. They need our help. I think we're a few months away from seeing that first turning point, and it could go either way. It could be the big turnaround that gets Overwatch back on the map, or it could be the beginning of the final chapter, the same road that StarCraft took. But you know, we have a part in this, and we need to play our part. We need to help tilt this game back in the right direction by talking. However, for now, that was it. If you like this video, might not be a lot of you, give me a thumbs up. It always helps me out. I also want to thank my patrons. I could not make these videos without you guys. You guys have my eternal gratitude. If you have a few minutes left, maybe check out this video. Click it. But above all, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye-bye.